Prayank from Photon Legal. We have got an esteemed panel today for our second edition of Embracing AI, a legal imperative, a panel discussion where we are bringing the in-house counsels from across the globe working in the tech industry to understand the impact of AI into day-to-day living of our society, and also understand how AI is changing the legal world at large. Today we have with us Jason Neal. He also likes to call himself as Jay, then Ryan Redden, and Michael Williams. So Jason is, thank you so much, gentlemen, for giving us your precious time and accepting the invitation to be the panelist for the today's session. So Jason comes from Everseen Technologies. He's a VP and General Counsel at Everseen. Everseen is a global AI-powered retail analytics platform, and Jason brings in deep expertise in corporate governance, cross-border AI deployment, and he has also been advising a lot of startups when it comes to cross-border jurisdiction and the challenges as well. Ryan, he's a GC at Redox, a leader in healthcare data interoperability services. He expertises in privacy, regulatory compliance, and a lot of other things when it comes to AI. Mikhail, he's, he heads legal and privacy at Tracker, which is an influencer marketing platform. Mikhail brings in extensive experience in privacy, governance, technology transfer, transactions, and he also helps a lot of innovative companies when it comes to technology. Today, we will be discussing about how AI is shaping the world, and I'm very fortunate to have such a diverse panel today. So, right from health tech to retail to influencer or the content side, we have got such a brilliant mix of panel today, and we would be touching upon different aspects when it comes to risk, as well as how one should be using AI, the kind of different guardrails one should be putting, and I'm sure the next 60 minutes everybody is gonna be loving it. So, without further ado, let me just open the panel and ask Jay the first question, which I have thought uh, after doing a research from his LinkedIn profile. So, Jay, in one of the posts, you mentioned that AI should be safe, responsible, and ethical. What exactly do you mean by this? I mean, these three terms putting together with AI, I'm not sure whether people are actually using it that way. So, what do you mean by use of AI as safe, responsible, and ethical? Would love to know your take on this.
Yeah, so it's kind of a multifaceted answer. So the first part is that it's all about ethical AI. It's all about making sure that you're taking seriously your responsibilities as regards AI. For example, compliance with things like the OECD principles. People want to know that this new technology that is taking over the world, is safe, and that by using it, they're going to guard against things like bias and any unintended consequences. So, one of the challenges that we have for safe, responsible, ethical, and transparent AI is the speed of the technology. The speed of the technology is so fast that it's very difficult for regulators and legislators to capture that at a point in time and then produce something which is actually dynamic enough to keep pace with all the changes that are going on. I can see Ryan smiling. So I think this is a kind of common aspect that we share. The other aspect is about appropriate governance. So um, I work for a vision AI company. So therefore, as a provider of AI as well as a recipient, we obviously have additional obligations to our customer base, to our shareholders, and so it's imperative that every aspect of AI within the company is properly governed with an appropriate committee, that we check the safeguards, we periodically report back on any instances of bias, we've got mitigations. So, I mean, we could talk for the full hour just on safe, responsible, ethical, and transparent AI. But I think really, if you are a recipient, so as a provider, we provide AI to our customers. As a recipient, they want to generally be aware of how the AI reaches the decisions and conclusions that it does, and that we kind of move away from this black box situation where all the magic happens behind the curtain, and then you get an answer at the end. So I'll kind of pause rather than dominate the conversation, but I think it really is a combination of so many different assets that give you that.
Interesting. So when it comes to embracing the AI, did you face any difficulties in instructing your team on how to embrace it? Were there set of guardrails which you as a council provided first to the team, or eh, all of you figured it out while using it?
So again, I guess we kind of have the advantage that we're an AI company. So we've been doing this since 2007. So even before things like the EU AI Act, we were firm proponents of the OECD principles. Having these principles that we would voluntarily subscribe to. So in terms of the ethos running through Everseen, that's been pretty consistent. But when you kind of bring all this together, and I think really the catalyst for a lot of people has been like the EU AI Act, and typically we find, for example, in data privacy with GDPR, that Europe tends to kind of bring things together. And then, for example, in the US, on the other side of the Atlantic, there's then kind of a patchwork of different regulations, some of which seem to follow closely the work that Europe's done. And so you get things like the Colorado AI Act, and then, in contrast, the Texas Responsible AI Governance Act. So there's a whole lot of things happening. So I think in terms of how we actually do it, it depends. We need to compartmentalize ourselves into two categories. One is as the provider of AI, which is all those things that I've talked about, but also we as an AI company have staff. We also use tools that include AI that are not our own. So we've also got the aspect of trying to get people to understand what responsible AI is as a recipient. So a lot of people that may be attending this webinar are not AI companies, but they are in the process of acquiring AI. And I've been to certain conferences on AI where panelists have said it's almost as if in some cases we need AI. We don't really care what it does, but we just need to say that we're in the AI space, so we're current and we're not going to be left behind. So I think this is very germane to those people because you kind of get a subset of tools. You get, for example, kind of locally installed tools for AI. They may be closed system, which means that the data doesn't actually leave your environment, which are obviously safer. And then you get those that are installed that are actually open systems where you're communicating with the AI provider. So again, there's a whole myriad of different privacy, InfoSec, and AI governance considerations there. But also, what about the everyday employee? So unless there's been some miracle where in the last 18 months, everybody has become far more proficient at writing reports, the quality of output has gone up through the roof. So people are using this. And, it's kind of naive of a company to assume that people don't have their own devices at home. They don't use AI. It's so prevalent. So what we've done is to say, look, we embrace the use, but we are absolutely rigid on certain safeguards. So for example, there is no confidential or proprietary information put into whichever AI provider or Gen AI provider that you're using. We never give customer data. We never put code. So there's all these safeguards that we put in place. And so with that, we trust our employees as an AI company that they would do this appropriately, watch what they do. And then the final category, conscious I'm taking a long time to answer this, but the other category is what are the uses of generative AI? So there are certain things that you need to be careful. You can't use generative AI for kind of HR or employment-based decisions, recruitment, disciplinary actions, termination, all that kind of stuff. You've got to be very careful. So we've taken the approach that we trust our employees. We have employee education routinely, and we also have very rigid safeguards that people comply with.
All right. Understood. Understood. That's a great take. Like, yes, as an AI company, you have made it uh, very clear to everybody that you are using AI, but there has to be certain guardrails and there has to be stricter approach when it crosses that threshold. I really second that. And with this, I want to move to Ran as well, because he comes from a health tech domain where data is actually of utmost importance, right? And he's practically having data of almost everybody who's taking the services or using their products. So, as an healthcare provider who is using AI and also providing some level of intelligence on top of the data which is being part of this, how do you look at AI and its implication to the healthcare industry overall? I want to understand from the top level on the industry level first, and then we'll get into specifics of how it is changing each and every workflow in your day-to-day life.
Sure. So overall, I think AI provides the greatest opportunity to fix what I think no one would disagree is a very broken and not too efficient healthcare system that we have in the United States. There's opportunity at every level, from insurance companies to hospitals themselves and patient experience and all the new tech that's coming in. AI just provides such an incredible opportunity for growth, for efficiencies, both from a cost perspective and a care perspective. And it's really unlike anything we've seen in quite a while since we moved from paper records to actual electronic health records. But even then, you still see that there is such slow adoption in the healthcare space. The biggest issue that most hospital systems contend with when they're working with their insurance providers is that everyone's still relying on fax machines. They are faxing paper records and having huge teams of individual employees that are going through those records and creating new records based on these faxes that come through, or millions of faxes that come through a year that are just make the system so inefficient and slow. AI is the best opportunity to automate things like that. And that's something that our company works in without AI at this point, but we're trying to get that integrated into our own systems, is to make these already existing systems just more efficient, taking out the very manual role that individuals play and just use technology for the better, for a better patient experience, for faster care, for more efficient care, and really just to make things more useful for the patients. At our company, like Jay said, the most important thing that we're doing is just establishing guardrails. Because for us, it's very important to find the right balance between moving too fast and moving recklessly and not moving fast enough that we actually make a difference. My team, for example, on the legal side, we're starting to use AI to analyze customer contracts, vendor contracts, to take out the salient points, to input some of our more bottled responses, just sort of so we can move faster and not have to spend so much time on the menial tasks. We use AI for legal research. As Jay said, the regulatory environment is shifting on a weekly basis in the US as every state is rolling out their own guidelines for AI. And there are some commonalities with copying the EU AI Act. Different states, for their own political or whatever reasons, are doing things uniquely. And when you're operating in all 50 states as we are, it makes it a moving target to try and accomplish that from a regulatory standpoint. From a compliance side, a big one for us is obviously security, with patient health information being the main thing that we deal in. We're connected to over 11,000 different healthcare organizations and groups within the US. Almost all of them want some sort of NDA or security review in place. The only way that we're able to deal with that without having an absolutely massive team is to utilize AI. We can create portals, we can have AI answer these sometimes 40 or 50 page questionnaires that come through, and we establish a new connection. And it's really the only way for us to gain efficiencies in that space. Every other team within our company is currently exploring how to use AI, how they can use it to automate the less specialized tasks and more time consuming ones, and really just make their day-to-day lives within the company more efficient. My favorite one is for Zoom calls, having AI join the call, send me notes afterwards with my salient points on what next steps I need to take. I don't know where I would be without that at this point, and sometimes it's strange to think back to a time when we didn't have that, which was just a few months ago.
Right. Right. Awesome. You even I love the AI note takers. In fact, I built a bot which is able to listen to all my conversation,
Mhm.
extract out the action items, and also send a calendar invite based on the discussion to the for the next meeting as well to all the participants who are part of the discussion.
Yeah,
So
it
it's really helping ease with ease of time and giving me back my hours.
yeah, it's absolutely incredible, and it can make everyone more efficient, can give you more hours in the day, than so that you're not spending meeting after meeting catching up on the meetings that just happened. You can walk away with salient notes, next steps, and just gain efficiencies.
Interesting. So you touched upon efficiency in terms of processes, reducing cost, and also usage of AI at different kind of at different levels in the organization. Considering the fact that the regulatory things are changing every week,
Mhm.
and it is different from every state as well. I have a question on that, but I'll come to that later on because I think that question would be applicable to all three of you. So before I do that, I want to move to Mikhail because we touched upon a very interesting topic that we are using AI to reduce the cost and increase efficiency. Now, when I look at Mikhail's business, it's a creator economy where they are managing thousands and several thousands of creators, and I think there's a platform which is helping brands identify which creator is more suitable for their campaigns and which one to hire, and it's all data driven decision making, right? Now with use of AI or with advent of AI right now, Mikhail, how challenging is it to identify whether this content is being done by an AI or it's done by humans, and which one would you or a brand would choose to select when it comes to monetization or for their endorsements or for their campaigns. How are you guys looking at AI and how it has shaped the world for you because you're far from the creator economy, which is I think impacted the most.
So regarding our platform, we don't necessarily tell people what is AI and what is not. If you actually go onto like Instagram, you will see if someone writes a caption or something, it will flat out say, "Oh, AI information." So a lot of the platforms are taking that on themselves to identify if it's an AI image, if it's an AI description. How we are benefiting from AI is more through like search. Like we're using AI to, if someone has a keyword that they're looking for, influencers that deal with, for example, like dogs, like the AI will automatically pick up canine, puppy, pets, other things that fall into that category because those are the influencers that that particular brand is looking for to engage with. And then also, AI is doing a better job of when we talk about compliance issues regarding influencers, like, hey, has this person said something recently? Have they done something that would look bad upon our brand if we partner with them? It's doing a better job of collecting all of that information as well to ensure that, hey, if we're going to run this campaign, that they align with our business, like ethics and ethos. And that's I think, the big thing that, at least for our business, of where AI is enhancing our tool and our features. And we're as well, like those are the things that have been a big questions for when I have my monthly meeting with our product team. They're like, "Hey, we're using AI," and I'm like, "Well, how are you doing it?" Like a bunch of the things that Jay touched on, as far as these are things you absolutely cannot put into these systems, versus these are things you can. And there's also ways of, like, based on the type of AI tool that we have, I'm more lenient based on their terms and conditions. Or at the end of the day, all of us on this panel know, if you're not paying for something, it's because you're the product. And I think a lot of my team members prior didn't necessarily understand, like, oh yeah, well, this is free, so I should just be able to use it. And I was like, that's exactly why you shouldn't use it. So I think, but those are the ways that our platform is enhancing based on implementing AI, but also just as Ryan also said, striking that balance between like moving too fast just because we're trying to stay ahead of our competitors. And a lot of people are potentially making getting funding under us that are like running away with this whole AI boom. But also thinking about the clients that we work with, it's like we can't have like a big exposure because something unethical happened or a way that we're using AI that like we can't take that risk. So it's definitely playing that balance of working with my product team of helping them utilize AI in the way that they want to. So not necessarily being a blocker, but being a collaborative partner that helps them still accomplish their goal, just potentially in a slightly different way. And I think that's the key to just being a good lawyer in general is not telling your business people no, but it just might not be in the exact way they envision when they came to you. But you want them to come to you.
Interesting. So, I mean, all three of you had echoed around ethical use of AI and the governance side of it. So I want to ask, what's more scarier for you? Is it mis- AI making mistakes? Because we know AI makes hallucination, right? Is that more scary part, or humans misusing AI to do something? What's more scarier? As an in-house counsel, what's your take on it? And this question is open for all three of you. You can chime in.
Sure, I'll take that one first if no one else minds. In my industry, at least, it is the misuse of AI by one of our employees that is by far the scariest for me. We deal with absolutely massive amounts of protected health information, and my worst nightmare is one of our employees to start do something where that somehow gets shared with any sort of AI and gets out there. That is by far the most extreme. We have every safeguard imaginable in place. But as AI is constantly evolving, and we, as Jay and Mikhail have both said, we're encouraging our teams to use AI so that we can grow, so that we can learn, but also striking balance with establishing those guardrails. Everyone is experimenting. Everyone is trying new things. We have to strike the right balance of encouraging that while also reining them in where it's appropriate. But for us, at least, the misuse of AI is my absolute worst nightmare.
Misuse of AI. All right, Mikhail, what's your worst nightmare or the scariest thing?
I would 100% agree with it's the misuse of it just because the tool is so powerful that you're able to do a lot of different things with it, and we actually don't even know what the bounds of those things are. And I think that's why it's imperative for when I have my monthly meetings with like the product team, it's like, hey, I know you said the MVP is about to be done. I would like to see it. I would like to like play with it, see like what it's actually doing. Cause I know you told me this is what it's supposed to do, but can it do other things that weren't intended to be done? Um, and try to like facilitate that process of being like early and often with them as the ideas are coming up that it's like we can flush through these things and find a way to like make it work. So but I will 100% agree with Ryan, it's the misuse of AI because there's ways to deal with the phantom information that AI gives, but there's a whole nother ordeal to deal with the people misusing it, especially misusing it across the organization. It's not just one person or two people. It's just like a cultural thing. Like that's a nightmare.
Okay, Jay, your take.
Uh, I'm going to give the politician's answer. That is that I think all of these are credible risks that a company needs to consider. So I absolutely get what Ryan and Mikhail are saying, and I agree with them. It is a terrible situation if it comes off. But similarly, if you're a company like ours, where you're actually providing an AI product, which is not kind of Gen AI, then you absolutely need to undertake continuous monitoring. You need to ensure that whatever data set you're using remains accurate. You need to make sure that the algorithm that you're using continues to drive the results that you're expecting. You can't rest on your laurels. So the reason this is a politician's answer is that both of those would feature prominently on my risk register, and both of them would have, an incredibly high impact if they were to occur. and then we need to look at what the mitigations are to kind of control them. But I guess um, the latter, the kind of hallucinations, making sure that the AI remains on topic, is something under more close scrutiny. Whereas the first part that Mikhail and Ryan were commenting on, that is something, at least for us, where our employees are trusted to use, for example, Gen AI. I mentioned that there are certain purposes you can't use it for, certain data you can't put into it. So the potential for misuse is vast, and I guess is less manageable. But I think both of them are credible risks for the risk register.
Interesting. Great take. Same like a politician. All right, so I have another one. And I'm sure this time you will not be able to go with your politician's answer. So, see, all of you guys are industries are different, right? It's very different, right? From health tech to influencer marketing to or marketing in general, or to a vision AI. Now, do you think the AI governance playbook, considering the different kind of industries, should it be universal, or the playbook should be industry specific? Considering currently there is no playbook and nobody knows what exactly is the guardrail. Every in-house council I'm talking to, they are forming their own guardrails. They are coming up with their own guidelines on, okay, this according to us is the best practice, or the best way to keep the AI and keep using it without harming anything else. Because the governance laws are also evolving, the regulatories are also evolving at a rapid pace, but AI is beating everybody. So, in this changing environment, how do you think we should look at AI governance? Should be universal or industry specific? Is what I wish to understand from all three of you.
I can take this one first.
Yeah.
Based on just being in an influencer marketing space where majority of the data that our company houses publicly available information. Um, in general, I think there definitely should just be a floor of how you're handling AI and the rules that should be applied to it. But I think just like any other data that's being involved, it should be a sliding scale. Like publicly available information, yes, why it should be protected, it's still public. Whereas if you have banking information or health information, a level of security and privacy that should be protected. And those should have different guardrails to it, just like they do in other aspects of law and compliance. So I think it should still play along those lines. So I think for my answer is more, it's a sliding scale based on what you're doing with the AI and what are the risks and effects of if something goes bad, if these guardrails don't help. So I think that's where my answer will lie.
Yeah, I would kind of build on that, Mikhail, and I would agree. I would say that the what has a degree of commonality. So it doesn't make any difference what kind of company you are, what size. The what, the things you need to look out for, are remarkably similar. The how is very different, and so for that reason, I would say that it doesn't exist where a one size fits all is appropriate. But having said that, one of the biggest challenges I've experienced speaking to people at conferences is that this perfection is the enemy of progress. There is such a myriad of information. Everybody's trying to corral all this information to create the perfect policy. And the problem with that is by the time you've done it, everything's moved on. So it really is one of those things that
Exactly.
it is better to take simple protections in the space of infosec, data privacy, and AI governance, put it together and build on it. So if you keep looking for the perfect model before you start, you're going to find that you're potentially in trouble as opposed to doing something, even if it's not perfect. And then, as I mentioned, that there is no one size fits all. There's a number of triage questions that you have to ask. So, are you a provider or a recipient or both of AI? So, the governance models that Ryan, Mikhail, and I would have in our respective organizations would be different because of the nature of the business that we have. You also need to look at, even if you're just a recipient, what does the AI do? How does it impact, and what are the effective data sets? And the other point is, when we look at, the general purpose for governance, who is actually affected? Is it individuals? Is it groups? Is there the potential for discrimination? All of this. Then the other point is, how big are you? As we said at the beginning, if you're a Microsoft, you're going to have an army of people looking at this and compartmentalizing subgroups into the whole. Whereas if you're a startup or even a mature startup, then you need to do the best you can with what you have. And that's a very real constraint for a lot of companies. So people wear a multitude of hats, depending on what the situation requires. And then the final point I would say is, even though the law is not the be all and end all, it is important to understand what your global footprint is, what the jurisdictions are that you operate in. And by implication, then what are the laws and regulations that you need to ensure you're consistent with? So the what, absolutely, I think, is the same. The how, fundamentally different.
No, I'm very much in agreement, and I would go a little bit further in saying that, as Jay pointed out, we can't have a one-size-fits-all solution because the technology is constantly changing, and regulations need to change right along with it. Any of these, so if we try and come up with a solution right now, it'll, by the time, as you said, we finish writing it, it's going to be obsolete. As AI is growing and changing on a daily basis, as are people's uses of it. With that, we can't come up with any sort of solution that lasts all that long at all. The big issue that we have is, and where healthcare likely requires a bit more regulation than most other groups, is just that the stakes are different. If you're using AI to make insurance and health decisions, that can literally have an impact on individuals' lives and whether or not they get treatment that they believe they need, that one doctor may think they need, but another doesn't. Statistically, whether or not certain factors are taken in, it can mean the difference between life and death. But most of these regulations that come out already do have limitations on using AI in decision making when it comes to healthcare. I don't think necessarily that would be the same for the marketing industry or for Jay's field, where it's working in a retail sense. So we do need a bit more regulation depending on what the stakes are. But again, it's something that is a constantly moving target. So we have to be adaptable as things continue to change and as the environment changes and as the technology changes.
Impressive. So according to you, it should be universal, the AI governance playbook?
I think there should be some guidelines that are universal, but then each industry needs to have their own ever-changing industry-specific guidelines as well.
Mix of both.
Yes.
Like a vanilla universal layer with top, and you can add your flavors on top based on your industries.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. All right. Now this is interesting. So, since we are talking about jurisdiction changing of regulations, I have another one for all of you. So AI tools which we are using right now, these are across borders, right? There are no borders or jurisdiction when it comes to usage of AI. And when it comes to our specific laws, be it data privacy law, IP laws, or even health related laws ran for your business, these are all jurisdiction specific. So when there is a challenge or there's a situation where there are multiple laws applicable or multiple jurisdictions are applicable because of usage of AI in a particular industry in a particular jurisdiction, how do you handle such situations in those
Sure.
scenarios? How do you pick up jurisdiction? How do you pick up responsibilities and risk, and how do you mitigate those?
No, it's very salient for us because it's something we've been dealing with even before AI. As healthcare data is so highly regulated in different ways across every country, even every state. So our approach has typically been, we find whatever is the most strict restrictions that there are, and we abide by those. And then we do constant analysis of changing laws and evolving laws in different states. and continuously shift our policies. Thankfully, most states provide their laws with some leeway. Nothing will be effective for 6 months or a year or two, so we have some time to adapt. But it's really on us as general counsels to be constantly educating ourselves, to be keeping up with with all these changing laws and helping guide our businesses appropriately to respond to them, make sure that we do remain compliant.
Interesting. So you follow the stricter law so that everything is covered
Yes.
in all the jurisdiction you're operating. That's a good take. Mikhail, how do you handle this? Because when I look at user-generated content and laws related to uh, the contents as well, it's again jurisdictional based. Europe has a different stance. US has a different stance when it comes to AI-generated content and the usage of those content as well, like a safe usage itself. How do you, as a company, handle these kind of challenges?
So we actually take the same approach as Ryan,
Okay.
and the reason we take that approach is more because who is like, granted, the creators are our bread and butter, and the information that we have on them is like what actually makes us money. But it's the brands who are controlling those relationships. So, for example, if we're talking about like opt out or delete or those type of like notices that we're receiving, our whole thing is like, hey, if you want to be deleted, fine, we'll delete you. We're not going to check if you're actually a California resident or you're actually a resident of GDPR. But what we do internally is, hey, is this creator part of any of our customers? And if the answer is yes, we notify the customer, we let them know. We'll also have a separate conversation with the data subject, and every single time that like we've done that, the person was like, actually, never mind about that request, because at that point, if you're deleted out of our system, you have a very unlikely chance to be part of a brand's campaign because they can't grab data on you anymore.
Mhm.
So there's that piece. But then I just want there was something you said earlier regarding just like the changing laws and how do you implement like technology. I had a mentor named Manish when I was in the healthcare space at this company called Progeny. It was um, they dealt with inf- infidelity benefits. So IVF, egg freezing, and those things. And as laws were starting to roll out, as far as like, can you do surrogate? Can you not? All these different things, he was like, I know you think like technology is evolving and like laws can't apply to like new technology, but he was like, a simple way to look at things is, hey, we currently have laws on the book. How do these laws actually apply to this new technology? Is there really a change that needs to be made? Or are we just thinking way too, like overthinking what the actual root of the issue is, or what is the real problem that this technology is causing? Or are we just making up that whole thing by itself? And once I started actually looking at things from that view, it's like, yeah, there is a law that already covers this. And if we just abide by this and apply this technology to it, it still works. So I think sometimes we just jump ahead of that whole analysis of like new technology, we need new laws, where it's like that's not always the case. AI, granted, because of the vast things it can do, is a little different, but I think a lot of the times we sometimes will jump ahead instead of just like really sitting back and being like, okay, what is on the books now? And how do these things apply to these new technologies?
That's an interesting topic you touched upon. Like the law is already written in the books and applied based on what is written in the book. Do we really need to change it or not? So when it comes to IP, specifically the copyrights, and we are in the age of generative AI, and we have already seen so many lawsuits coming out from the US, where singers are complaining that my tone has been taken away, my lyrics are modified, and there is a new song altogether coming out, or new literature is coming out. Even GPT is writing books in less than 5 minutes today, right? So, with all of these changing dynamics, how do you look at IP rights or copyright specifically uh, when it comes to author rights? when it comes to licensing deals, because everything's going to impact. And who should actually be owning this? What do you think, Mikhail? Because I read one of your posts on LinkedIn about copyrights, and you wrote around 4 paragraphs about uh, how the landscape is changing and the difference between it. So I want to know from your side firsthand on this panel, what do you think about this? Like IP, AI, change of usage rights. What's your take?
I think that piece is extremely interesting, and I think that's why a lot of artists have started sending more just like cease and desist,
Yeah.
because it's a tricky thing, because a lot of these things are like parodies where people aren't making money off of them. They're just like making them to make jokes or different things. I think the law is pretty straightforward, and when it comes to copywriting someone's voice and making a new song and making money off of it. Like now you're taking someone's likeness. But when it goes to like parody use and those things, a lot of the case law has kind of been like fair use as long as there's not a commercial aspect to it. And I think that's the part that's frustrating people. And also, a big issue is hidden in them terms and conditions that we just like to click through. We've given a lot of those rights up to certain companies where they can use our likeness and voices and regenerate it through AI, and we just didn't know it. Is there some law that potentially needs to come to reset that for everyone of like, hey, we just didn't know, so we can get our likeness back? Maybe. But from my standpoint, it's one of those things is like, honestly, the laws, except for the piece of us unwillingly or unknowingly not reading through the 100-page terms and conditions, um, the laws are on the book as far as how to address those situations.
Hmm. Interesting. Ran, I saw you smiling on this topic itself. Do you want to add something on this?
No, that's honestly from what Jay was talking about. That's one of my greatest hesitancies with AI is just using it for deep fakes and things like that. It's just such a scary thing. It can so easily be abused and used to spread so much misinformation. And half the time, like you said, it's not someone, it's done for the sake of parody. It's not done to make money. It's people that are experimenting with AI and just sort of messing around with it and just all of these potential unintended consequences that, especially in your space, Mikhail, is so prevalent and so easily accessible. And just finding where to draw that line, I imagine, can be incredibly difficult, especially as where everyone is being encouraged to innovate and try new things and do new things.
Interesting.
I think with a lot of areas of law, IP has this kind of graduation where you go from the really simple or relatively simple examples to the very, very complex. And part of the problem you have is, you have a number of class actions with writers and with artists, and I think musicians as well, going through saying that it more than kind of takes a small license to use certain parts. It's actually basically utilizing all of this. So I think we need to be aware of the fact this is not, it's a continuum for going from one to the other, and it does become very complex. The other point is that, as I said at the beginning, one of the guardrails that we've put in place is zero code. We don't want to be in a situation where AI, which has got a very good reputation for creating code, one of the AI conferences I attended in Dallas said that sort of pure coding could be on the decrease because AI can do it probably just as well, if not better. Now, I don't mean to say it's going to remove everything, but this is another reason why any company, especially one that doesn't manufacture, therefore requires kind of compliance and protection of its intangible assets. You need to be very careful about, yeah, okay, I need a bit of code for this. All of a sudden, you've gone out, code has come back. You've got two risks. One is your code potentially is out there, and two, the code that's come back could even be something which is subject to copyleft, or it could be anything. The point is, it's one of those areas we said, no, thank you. We're not doing it. Coding is completely off base. don't do. So I think IP is a very complex area on this continuum. And I think we're going to be seeing an awful lot more in the news and developments as AI continues.
Yeah, I think Jay makes a great point. And I think for platforms like Tracker, we use a lot of open source code and keeping track of those licenses as far as what type of open source code we use and implementing using like Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT. It's that is a huge question. Like, is this code that they're just generating based on the principles that they've been told, or are they pulling from a open source license that also states that this can't be used for commercial reasons? Like, those are things it's hard to track outside of, yes, we have internal tools that will scan all our code to say, hey, do we have any open source, and tell us what type of license it is. But it's a constant like rat race in the sense of, hey, there's new technology, there's licenses, there's IP issues, and you're constantly trying to keep up, and also at the same time not trying to slow down your product and engineering team from developing. So that is a great point that Jay made in a sense of when it comes to the complexities there.
Interesting. So when AI came, and we got to know about all the use cases of AI, lawyer community specifically started to feel that our jobs will be taken by the AI, or there can be significant work which AI would do. There are law firms which have made statements saying that we do not use AI, because if we are saying that we are using AI and using that to reduce the research time, reduce the work, then it's actually also impacting their billable hours. So people have said no initially, but I think it's almost a year now. We are living in the age of AI, and people are embracing it. So this question is specifically for you, Jay, because you have seen so many transformations throughout your life, right from the day when the first computer was launched, then the internet came, and now today we're talking about AI and maybe humanoids later on, or maybe AI bots itself, who would be talking to each other and just feeding us information while we are sipping our drink at the beach. So what, according to you, would happen now to our profession or people who are in the legal space? We have already seen the computer as well as .com thing, and nothing bad has happened to the lawyers as such. How is AI changing us, revolutionizing us? Would love to know your take. And also one more point: do you think AI is the biggest innovation humankind has seen in so many decades?
Take the last one first, absolutely.
Okay.
So as I put in my LinkedIn post, it has been described as the new industrial revolution. And when you stop to think about it, what the things that are actually being done, and I don't mean kind of just using it as a Google substitute if you're Googling something, but actually, operationalizing the use of AI. I mean, it's fundamental, the things that you can get done. So I don't think there's any doubt that the genie is out of the bottle. We're not putting it back. It's only going in one direction, so we need to get in front of it. The other thing is that I think it's largely accepted, although people may comment afterwards that I'm wrong, but I don't think we're quite at the stage of artificial general intelligence. I think we're still in very extreme narrow intelligence, or broad, but I don't think we're quite at the point where AI can literally do everything a human can. So my answer is kind of conditioned on where we stand on this on this pathway. But the other thing is that I don't understand that position from law firms. So I mean, when I was at school, showing my age, the internet wasn't around, so therefore we had to go to the library and actually look stuff up. And so if I was to maintain that everybody should go to the library because this new technology called the internet's coming, I mean, we have to keep pace. Technology is here. I think the law firms should be using AI, but the one thing which is imperative is it does not replace judgment. So for my legal team, absolutely, please use AI. subject to the guardrails. But, you know, use AI, find it back, but then I expect your judgment to come in and say, yeah, this is really good. It saved me some time, but this isn't quite right. You know, the way that this has been done isn't right, but this gives me a good starting point. So I think, you know, the same thing in academia. It wasn't that long ago that universities were saying, oh, if we find any AI, then, you know, we're going to employ AI to root out AI, and then people will be punished. And a lot of universities are now coming round to the point, well, look, it's okay to use AI, provided that you can defend it, that you've employed judgment, you've utilized it appropriately. And, you know, if you're then investigated by your academic institution, they ask you a question, and you fundamentally don't understand the central point of your thesis, then expect to get a rough ride. You know, so I mean, I think we have to embrace technology. We just have to use it appropriately and make it safe, ethical, responsible, and transparent.
Interesting.
I'd build off that a little bit and go back to an earlier question you asked, which was the threat posed when AI hallucinates. I think as of right now, that's, as Jay said, makes it so that will always be relying on the attorney's judgment. We can use the AI as a tool to make us more efficient, to make us faster, to help us not start a document from a blank page, but start from something. But again, at this point, AI hallucinates. AI it needs to give an answer to a question that's asked. And AI does not tell you, I need to go back, I need to do more research, and I need to confer with a colleague to get you the best answer. AI just gives you an answer in 1 second, and that's why we love it.
Yeah.
But it's not always the right answer. And so for the foreseeable future, at least, we're going to be reliant on attorneys who are held accountable, who have the education, who have the experience to pull on things that aren't just written down somewhere, and whether it be case law, black letter law, someone's article, and we weigh all of these different factors to express our own judgment. We stand by that judgment, we defend that judgment, we evolve it as we obtain new facts. So I think that's the biggest gap that we are able to maintain for quite a while, is that AI just is not anywhere near the point of replacing human judgment, because there's no way it can take into as many factors in the experience of being a practicing attorney and operating in that environment.
Yeah, I agree. So we are towards the last bit of our discussion, and before I close, I would want to understand from you, how long has it been that you have started playing with AI, and what has been your big wins and your big misses when it comes to usage of AI? It could be in your personal or in your professional journey, or just kind of an exploring AI. How long have you been using it? What's your big miss? What's your big win? I would love to know from all three of you. Mikhail, maybe we can go first with you on this.
My big miss, it actually happened, I want to say at least like 2 months ago.
Okay.
It was the first time I was like introducing, like, my boss currently, she really hasn't dove into AI. She's CFO of the company, just because of all of the hallucination. So I was doing a project of just like consolidating data or information. Nothing was proprietary or anything. And ran the report, and it was just completely wrong. Like, just looking at it, took a glance, I'm like, where are they pulling this information from? Like, it was probably the worst example. It's probably the best example of like hallucination, but it's like, as far as like a product of like showing how to use the tool and the benefits of it, it was the absolute worst example, and probably set her adoption back for at least another 6 months of like, I'm not touching this. But I think from the standpoint of, I think wins, I think sometimes when clients just send over, for example, like a simple NDA, and it's like, I'm very short on time, it's like, hey, run this through. And then it'll point out certain things. Like, granted, I already have my 5 areas that I'm checking anyways. but it might point out something that I potentially would have missed if I would just did a quick skim versus a full out analysis of like that NDA. So I think it's just like at times it can do something really quick and save me a few minutes. Whereas like I would never do that with the MSA just because I don't trust it enough to do that. But like an NDA is like, even if I'm reviewing it myself, typically it will take 15 minutes tops. Where with the AI, I'm saving maybe 10 minutes.
Got it. That's your daily use case.
Yeah.
All right. And how long have you been playing with AI?
For me, it's been about, it was like right when ChatGPT first came out. Um, my preferred use now is actually Gemini over ChatGPT. I think it's just like more intuitive. Also prefer the approach that Google took to having a lot more human interaction while they were building it out. Um, and then just like the terms and conditions, I feel like just better than ChatGPT as well.
Interesting. Good to know. Good to know. Thank you so much for answering that. Ryan, your take. How long have you been
Sure.
using it? And big win, big miss.
So I'll answer two of those at once. I've only been using AI for about a year, and I think that's probably been my biggest miss, is just not adopting it sooner, and really starting to experiment as it came out. I was very hesitant for quite a while, just because I would read all these articles of all these things that went wrong with attorneys using AI and becoming overly reliant on AI, dealing with these hallucinations we've talked about before. So that made me very, very hesitant. So really, just failure to adapt it much, much earlier has been my biggest miss. Our biggest win has been from a compliance standpoint. We have to, we're audited by regulators annually and semi-annually. One of our audits is to make sure that we're compliant with all of the healthcare data laws. So it has 598 controls, and each one of these requires a separate response with evidence and everything else. And we're now starting to use AI to help respond to some of that. It has been historically a several month-long process with every team across our company. And now that we're starting to adapt AI far more into our systems and into our compliance group, we're able to respond to this much faster. Our scores have been absolutely incredible this year, and it's really just made us so much more efficient on doing what is otherwise just very, very menial work that is incredibly important.
Awesome. Awesome. And like Mikkel mentioned, his personal favorite is Gemini. What's yours?
Mine is also Gemini. I'm a huge fan. From a research standpoint, I think Gemini is by far the best.
Oh, interesting. I've been using ChatGPT a lot. I've never found Gemini or Claude that interesting, but yes, now since both of you have given good feedback, I would try it again. Maybe I would have tried at the early stage of Gemini, and I did not like that. But
Mhm.
yes, time for me to give it a check again. Jay, what about you?
Um, well, I guess my preferred platform is Perplexity, principally because I get the sources for everything that it says. So, being a natural cynic, worried about hallucinations, I like to be able to click on the footnote and go direct to the source doc to see, is this something which is a complete figment of AI imagination. Um, my last two GC positions have both been for AI companies in different spaces. So I guess 5 to 6 years is kind of my intimate experience with AI. Although I think one of my misses is that personally, I kind of hadn't used it as much personally as I have for work. So in terms of wins, I mean, I would kind of back what Brian said. We have spent a significant amount of time as an AI company that already, were very strongly aligned with like OECD principles, taking time to get a myriad of stakeholders together to create, an AI policy and responsible AI governance framework. And I actually used AI originally at the beginning to say, for this kind of company, give me an outline source for a policy that regulates AI. So I asked AI to give me a policy outline, which we then discussed over a year ago and everything. It was very interesting. So we've used AI, but the other success, or the other aspect of the success, is that it's helped us realize the growing convergence, not just of AI governance, but also of privacy and infosec. Again, and anybody that works with me is probably sick of hearing me say this, but it very much is like a Venn diagram where this area of intersect between the three rings is only growing. And that's been tremendous for us because it's enabled us to convey to our customers why this really is the source of trust, for the organization, because it's all coming together. A lot of other companies have even taken the decision now to blend some of these positions into a chief data governance officer or chief data officer. So there does seem to be a trend of this. And I think AI has helped us in that way. Again, not replacing judgment, but just giving us some steers for us to consider as a group. So I think that's been a real success for us as a company.
Interesting. Awesome. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. We are, I think, almost around an hour. We just crossed that. And I have loved the conversation. Thank you so much for all of you for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, and your takes about AI, how it's helping the entire in-house counsel workflow, and in fact, how one organization should be coming up with guardrails when it comes to safe and ethical use of AI. You guys have been such a great givers, and I really appreciate you all giving us your time and precious knowledge. Thank you so much from Photon Legal and from myself. This has been a fantastic panel, and would be happy to be in touch with you and explore a few more areas of AI as it keeps on evolving. And I'm sure we can connect again when AI reaches to a next level altogether, where we are discussing again on some of the same topics, some of the same issues which AI 2.0, 3.0 would have. So it was great having you again. Thank you so much. And signing off, Prayank from Photon Legal. Stay tuned for the next edition of the Embracing AI, a legal imperative, where we will talk with in-house counsels from across the globe and bring you the best of the best knowledge and wisdom when it comes to use of AI. Thank you so much.
Thank you.